Live from the Zoom studios, the 17 and Me Show, starring Ambassador Jeff Rivero, inviting you to join our special guest, Andrea Falken. And here we go.
Welcome to the 17 and Me Show, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals show. Our special guest for tonight's show is Andrea Falken from the U.S. Department of Education. Speaking of education, did you hear about the music teacher that locked her keys in the classroom? She left them in the piano. What does a buffalo say when they drop their son off to school? Bye, son. Where is a math teacher's favorite place to visit when they're in New York City? Times Square. That's the last time I leave the front door open for you guys. And finally, why did the clock get sent to the principal's office? Because he was talking too loudly. We're going to have a great show here tonight for you. We have Andrea Falken from the U.S. Department of Education, who's going to tell us a little bit about the Green Ribbon. But first, a commercial break from our sponsors, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. See you back in a moment.
We can be.
We must be the first generation
to end extreme poverty.
The generation
most determined
to fight injustice
and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done.
The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We will live in a world
Where nobody
anywhere
lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one
wakes in the morning
asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world where no child has to die of
Diseases we know how to cure.
and where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world where
Everyone goes to school
and education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities to thrive
and be powerful
and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is headed back.
We will live in a world
Where all people can get clean water.
and proper toilets
at home, at school,
and at work.
We will live in a world where
there's sustainable energy for everyone.
Heat, light,
and power for the whole planet.
without destroying the planet.
we will live in a world where economies prosper.
and new wealth.
lead to decent jobs
For everyone.
and we will live in a world where our industry,
our infrastructure and our
Best innovations.
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
Are defeated.
inside our countries,
And between different countries.
Where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
What we consume.
Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back the threat of climate
change.
where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas. We'll restore
and protect
Life on land.
The forests.
Animals.
the earth itself.
With peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open.
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
With everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people.
Work together.
Partnerships of all kinds.
To make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
For sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
Welcome back to the 17 and Me Show. Thank you to our sponsors, the United Nations. Let's meet Andrea Falken from the U.S. Department of Education. How are you doing tonight, Andrea?
Doing great. It's nice to be here to speak with you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Andrea, can you give us the background that led to the U.S. Department of Education and the Green Ribbon Schools Award?
Well, that's a funny story. The award. So I didn't come to the department to work on the award. The award was begun after I got there. So I had the pleasure and honor of starting it up. Actually, it was a request from the public. Actually, 80 national and state-based organizations made a request to the White House and the EPA and the U.S. Department of Education, ED, we call it, asking for the creation of this award. And just through happenstance, I had recently come to ED from another federal agency as just a change of circumstance. And it sort of fell into my lap. And I was told to make it a little bit like National Blue Ribbon Schools program, but I ended up seeing some more opportunities with it. So we took some aspects of that National Recognition Award, which has been around since the early 80s, but we also incorporated some other things that I just thought made good sense. So I didn't actually come to ED for it. I didn't find out about it till after I came, but it's been a real great experience. Standing that up from the ground up, starting in 2011, 2012, was such a great experience. And I've had my sustainability education as I created this award as a communications and outreach tool for the federal government. I knew communications principles, but I wasn't necessarily a sustainability expert. And I got to meet with a lot of people in different sectors and learn all about what was important to people as I developed the criteria for the award.
First, I'd like to thank you and everyone else that puts in so much hard work into the Green Ribbon Schools Award. I had the pleasure of meeting Adam Honeysett while I was in Washington, D.C., so if you don't mind saying hello to him for me, and thank you for all his work as well. I would like to ask you, what is your passion behind environmental education and the Green Ribbon School Award?
I would say that the award really wasn't because of my personal passion. Again, it was a request from the public that we create some mechanism to address school facilities, health, and environment. And it turned out the gentleman named Jim Elder, who runs something called the Campaign for Environmental Literacy, noticed that there was something called this National Blue Ribbon Schools program, and why can't we create something for green schools? So it was this seedling of an idea that kind of got passed to me, and then I went and took input from many different stakeholders, nonprofit groups, and federal agencies, and put together these all-encompassing criteria. And I think my favorite part of U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools is the fact that it's so comprehensive. It was billed as the first comprehensive federal green schools program. And what it's intended to do is recognize schools that are reducing environmental impact and costs. So that's everything: waste, water, energy, transportation, greenhouse gases, improving health and wellness. So everything from your outdoors physical activity to nutrition, school garden grown, and also indoor air quality, which has become even more important right now in times of COVID, but everything, air quality, contaminant control, pesticides, moisture, everything indoor environments is wrapped into that pillar. And then the third pillar is environmental education, like you mentioned. So I think it's all important. I try not to pick sides. I don't want to play favorites. I think it's all important. And I really love that the award encourages schools. Some schools might be super strong on energy efficiency, or they might have made a real commitment to environmental education. But because we set these guideposts with the three pillars, they might have seen this award advertised by their state education agency and wanted to apply and realized, oh, hey, we're doing this, this, and this, but we've failed to address transportation matters, or we've failed to address environmental health or environmental learning, whatever it might be. So they tend to round out. And so what we've done, hopefully with the award, what we were endeavoring to do was stand up a few schools each year. And now actually we have schools, districts, and post-secondary institutions, and use them as examples to inspire other schools with their practices. So we use your school as an example, and every year we put out a report, and we have social media around it. We invite these honorees to Washington, D.C. Obviously, last year it was a virtual series of events, but normally they come to D.C. and they're able to celebrate their achievements. And in doing that, we're able to shine a spotlight on their practices, their sustainable school practices, and hopefully inspire a few other schools to do more of the same. And that is, believe it or not, pretty much the limit of ED's authority, the U.S. Department of Education's authority in facilities, health, and environment. Sometimes people don't realize that the U.S. Department of Education actually has a fairly limited role in this country in terms of education. In a lot of countries, there's a Ministry of Education. It's very centralized, and they oversee everything from curriculums to facilities to books to teachers, right? But in the US, it's very decentralized. We have state systems and lots of little local systems. So we actually at the federal level don't have a lot of authority in terms of curriculum, so environmental education, in terms of health or facilities practices. But we wanted to support this request and highlight these innovative practices in any way that we could. So within our statutory authority, that is what Congress allows us to do, this was the small contribution we could make. So, it's a small piece compared to what you schools are doing out there, but it was the way that we could recognize without congressional action, the way we could advance these aims and respond to that request.
We're going to take a break here and listen to the United States Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona. We'll be back in just a second.
Hello, I'm Miguel Cardona, and I'm honored to serve you and our nation's students as the 12th Secretary of Education. We're living through one of the biggest disruptions in education in our nation's history, and we don't have a second to waste. Learning fuels opportunity, and right now, for too many, learning is at risk. I know what's at stake for our nation's students, educators, and parents because I am all of those things. As a student, I was blessed to attend public schools in my hometown of Meriden, Connecticut. Education expanded my horizons, helped me become the first in my family to graduate college, and made me a lifelong learner. I'm privileged to have served as an educator. In this very same school where I currently sit, I served as a teacher. This is the 4th grade classroom where I started as a teacher over 20 years ago. I later worked as a principal and assistant superintendent in the same community that gave me so much growing up. To America's students and parents, as Secretary of Education, I'm always going to have your perspective at the table. I'm going to be listening, and I want to do everything in my power to make sure that every decision that's made at the agency, not only by me, but by everyone that we work with, is centered on what's best for you. We need to respect the teaching profession for what it is, the foundation of all other opportunities. We've seen the important role educators have had this past year. En la unión está la fuerza. We know that there's strength in unity. Doesn't that lesson drive and define us in the United States of America? Isn't that what we do when times are tough? We face adversity, we solve problems, and we come out stronger. So today, let's join together, students, educators, parents, caregivers, advocates, and state, local, and tribal leaders. Everyone who believes in the promise of our learners and the promise of our country. Together, we got this.
Well, we're back with our special guest, Andrea Falken from the U.S. Department of Education. This is my favorite portion of the show. Andrea, can you tell us which one of the 17 SDGs is your favorite, and what's the passion behind that goal?
That I was looking at them again and trying to decide which one is I'm most passionate about now. It's changed over time. I was actually, believe it or not, this goes back to the first question you asked, how I ended up at Ed doing this work. My background is not at all in sustainability. It was actually in Latin American studies, both undergrad and grad school. So a lot of these are near and dear to my heart. But over time, I guess as I've aged, as I've had my own kids, I tend to look at what I'm able to impact on the daily. And I think a lot about health and well-being. And I think a lot about responsible consumption. I'm really interested in a lot of these food recovery efforts, and I participate in one locally. And I'm pretty invested in teaching my boys that we get outside and active every day, and we eat healthy, and we don't waste. And I try to espouse that. And then just visiting, green schools across the nation, as I've been fortunate to do, I've seen a lot of these wonderful goals espoused in our past honorees. So they're I mean, they're really all important, but if I had to pick two for me right now, I guess I would go with health and responsible resource consumption.
Well, time has really flown by tonight, Andrea. I appreciate your time. But before you go, there's one question I'd like to ask. Are there any words of encouragement or advice you'd like to share with our viewers and my students on their futures?
I guess I would say, I think back to my years of studies and my somewhat circuitous path from, I started in DC and went to New York and ended up in Europe and came back to the US and went from one federal agency to another. Is, stick with it, persevere, and try some new things. I never thought I'd be working in sustainability, and now green schools are a big part of my life. And you can learn a lot on the job in addition to whatever your degrees are in. And I would say, just, give it a try, follow that path, see what that door opens. Excuse me. You never know what a new challenge might bring. Take on the challenges.
Andrea, would you like to share your contact information along with any upcoming events?
Well, they can always check out, we've got a great resource site. So you mentioned our U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools is the award. We honor schools, districts, and post-secondary institutions. If you're interested in applying, if you think your school, district, or post-secondary institution is doing great work in all of those pillars I mentioned, you actually apply to your state education agency, and it's only open to U.S. schools. I know your program goes international, but it is a U.S. program. So you would contact your state education authorities to apply. But for all schools, even if you're not there yet, I want to make sure you know about a website that we offer that is a resource hub for resources in all of the pillars, and it's called greenstrides.org. And I'd say that's probably my most important link. I've got a number of them, but if I were to send you to one, that would be it, because it has the tools. It's designed to provide the tools that all schools need to move toward the pillars. It was created in coordination with our partners at the Center for Green Schools at the U.S. Green Building Council, and they generously have supported this site. And when we created Green Ribbon, we realized pretty quickly that there were a lot of resources out there for green schools, and schools that are interested in doing this work don't necessarily know where to go. So we wanted to try to put it all in one place. So you have on there a lot of resources from different nonprofits, different federal agencies, different states, and you also have a webinar listing. You've got links back to our site about the award if you want to check that out. But I'd say that's the most important piece, having the resources that any school can use.
Well, Andrea, I want to just tell you thank you very much for all the hard work that you put in for the U.S. Department of Education and the Green Ribbon Schools Award. It was such a huge honor for us to win that award. So I want to tell you once again, thank you very much. Tell everyone back in D.C. we really appreciate it. It's your blood, sweat, and tears and boots on the ground that really help out all the schools in the United States.
Jeff, I would have to disagree. I would say it's your boots on the ground and your blood, sweat, and tears. I have the easy job of looking at all these great nominations from states each year and commending this work. That's relatively easy compared to all the building of gardens and the teaching of environmental practices and upgrading buildings. I don't get to do any of that. I get to visit them around the country, but I don't actually get to do it myself. So you've got the hard job. Thank you for your work, and thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for those kind words. Please let everyone know back in DC that I proudly wear their U.S. Department of Education seal and promote the Green Ribbon Schools Award everywhere I go. If any of our viewers would like to know about the Green Ribbon School Award or about the 17 SDGs, both of the email addresses will be below. The 17sdgs.org is the place to go for any teachers that would like to teach the goals in their classrooms. Thank you very much for being a viewer tonight, and I hope to see you on our next episode of 17 and Me. Until then, have a great time.
Thank you.